These mini gnomes, mini gnomes, are super cute and fun and playful, but they're also surprisingly quite easy to make. All you're going to need is a little rectangle piece of felt, a semicircle piece of felt, a teeny weeny piece of fake fur, and some embroidery floss for the nose. You start by rolling up, oh, and the dimensions of those are right there in the descriptions below. You'll see all the write-ups down there. So you're going to start by rolling up your long rectangle piece of felt. Just kind of like a sleeping bag. Which, considering how much these guys like hanging out in nature, that makes sense. Next, you're going to need needle and thread, usually about the same color. You kind of want this to hide. And you're going to stitch just like so. And I like to try to hide the knot in there. And stitch just right along that edge till you get to the top. And when you get to the top, I always like to tie a little knot right there so that it doesn't wander. Okay, now we're going to add the beard. And as you can see, it's a teeny weeny little piece of beard. And I want that on the direct opposite side from this seam, because this is the back. Of course, I suppose if you wanted to sew the beard over it, it could help hide the seam. But I like to do it in the back. Or in front, back. And you just put that needle right straight through your little Gnome jelly roll here and stitch right along that top edge to secure that the beard to the gnome. A gnome's beard is his glory. Truly, what would a gnome be without his beard? He'd be a bald gnome. Nobody knows what they have on top of their head. Their hats. Maybe they're bald on top. Maybe that's why they wear their pointy hats. Okay, so you secure with the knot, like so. Run your needle through wherever you want it to come out, doesn't matter. And clip that. Now I want to show you really quick how to cut this fake fur properly, because if you cut straight across, you can see that you would cut off all that fur. So when you cut it, you need to make sure that you kind of fold that fur out of the way or slide between the fur and the other. But when you're cutting across the side, like so, you can just cut right down the middle and it doesn't matter. And now we have two little beards for our two future gnomes. Next, we're going to add his nose. And the way we do that is we take some embroidery floss. Now, this is 6-strand embroidery floss, and I just used all 6 strands. I want a nice round nose, and if I separate that out, it's not going to be as firm. So I want a nice solid one. I'm just going to go right in here and put that about center in the beard. Pull it through, and if that gives you a hard time, you can use one of these lovely quilting grippy things to do so. Now the trick is to keep the beard hair out of the way because it can get tangled up. And we're just going to tie a French knot. I liked to use about 6 loops, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6. It kind of almost ends up being more of a bullion stitch than a French knot, but you can call it a French knot if you want to. We just will be okay. Hold that out of the way. And here we go with our lovely French knot. And once again, I'm going to use this grippy because it is an awfully thick string to try to pull through there. Okay, whoop. There we go. gonna kind of comb his beard out, make sure it's all nice. Situate that nose just the way we want it, so it stands out and looks like a proper nose. A proper nose! And we're gonna just knot this. And it doesn't matter if stuff is up here, it's going to be hidden by his hat anyways. I'm just going to run that through the bottom so that we have a tail. Well, not that the gnome will have a tail, but that the string will have a tail so it doesn't pull out. Okay. Next, we're going to make his fun hat. The other glory of the gnome is his hat. Without his beard and his hat, is he even a gnome? I don't know, he might have an identity crisis. And the way we do this is we take our knot on the end, and I want the knot to hide inside of the hat. So I'm just going to run it kind of through, just like so. I don't want it to show on the other side. And felt is wonderful for this reason. Felt, oh, the wonders of felt. It doesn't unravel on the edges, it doesn't fray, and you can kind of go through the center bit to hide your knots. Next, we're just going to fold it like so and do teeny tiny stitches. Just folding it in half. Teeny tiny stitches to get us started. Or fold in half to get started, I suppose. Really, eventually we're going to change that up just a little bit so that it's nice and round. We can start by just kind of folding in half. Helps us get the right spacing. Okay. Now if I kept doing that, then it would end up kind of looking a little wonky, a little flat. So now I'm going to kind of open that up and stick my finger in here. And then you're just going to make those edges, just kind of give them a little kiss. Just make those edges smooch a little. The trick is to keep that string in line where it needs to be instead of where it wants to go. Sometimes it wants to wrap around the hat. Like so. Just like a good mom, you just help it get to the place where it needs to be. Now if you have skiwampus edges like this one, that's really no big deal because we have our handy dandy scissors, and you can just kind of trim that edge a little and it's just fine. So if you didn't cut your semicircle perfectly, that's no big deal. Okay, now we're going to tie a little knot here, but we're not going to clip it. We're going to use this to stitch our hat to our little fellow, because he doesn't really want to be without his hat. He doesn't really want to take it off. Everybody might see he's bald. Now I try to line up the back seams. I like it that way. Helps calm down the OCD. And you just stitch his little hat right along that edge, making as tiny as stitches as possible. And I do recommend holding the beard out of the way so you don't get the beard hair all mixed up in there. And tie your knot. Run it through. Oop. Once again, it likes to catch that hat. our little fellow is ready to go play with his friends.